Thank you very much, Professor Kathleen Phillips. This is a very exciting topic, and I'll stick to your time. First, I think I want to say the following. We can't keep doing the same thing and expect different results, especially in the African continent. I think Professor Beckles did a fantastic critical political economy of the situation in Africa, linking it to its colonial history. So anything we do in the digital financing and innovation space mustn't, if you like, recreate colonialism or be a form of neo-colonialism, if you like. And I like the way you introduced the topic, talking about digital inclusion, implying therefore that digital divide we know exists within Africa and between Africa and other continents, especially in the industrialized developed north. So we have to address those particular kinds of situations as well. So what I'm going to be suggesting here is that we need to think about a few dimensions of the problem and then think about using a concept of transdisciplinarity in order to bridge the gap between the old paradigms of development more broadly and development finance and finance more particularly, which is often about including people in a capitalist model, which model has not worked for, as we know, so many decades, if not over a century. How do we break those boundaries? And one of those things we need to do in the academy, perhaps, is to break the boundaries between the academic disciplines, to expand them, to look at the broader context of how do Africans as individuals, groups, classes, and so on exist in financial capital and in financial markets. So first, I think we need to enable access to financial resources to those with the greatest need and to those who can make the biggest difference. I think that is one. And we know that the people who with the greatest need and who can make the biggest differences, two, getting out of poverty and getting into better education, well-being, and health are the large majority of Africans. Large majority of Africans are not poor people. Africa is some of the largest population of poorer people. Second, innovative financing requires a shift from the traditional borrower, lender, or donor paradigms, which tend to be transactional in nature. And a transactional model is not going to work actually in the continent and in this relationship with the rest of the diaspora. We need to shift, therefore, from the transactional nature to partnering, which values embedded knowledge, strengths, and capabilities of participating communities and co-create solutions for mutual benefit. That's one of the things I want to push in this short time I have. Co-creation of solutions for mutual benefit. That's not the standard capitalist model. That's not the standard colonial nor neo-colonial model. It's one that says the people might be illiterate, but that does not mean they do not have knowledge. That does not mean that they cannot be, if you like, drivers of their own change and owners of their own futures. That's very important. Sources of finance need to be patient and sustainable, strengthening local capability in a way that enables the generation of new value and is self-sustaining. We're not talking about the sustainable development goals by coincidence or accident. We know that there have been development goals before. And some people might even call colonialism, as they called it, civilizing the natives, was a development paradigm. But it did not respect the dignity, the human rights, and the self-worth of Africans and those that are now in the diaspora. So innovative financing for sustainable solutions must also incorporate innovative ways of sharing risk. Risk is always, when you talk finance, you're always talking about risk, but the risk cannot actually be, in a sense, outsourced to those who need the most. Partnering on a foundation of trust-based relationship requires mutual respect and the maintenance of human dignity, acting with integrity and embracing accountability. We know the history does not follow these principles. Recognizing the complexity of the challenges faced, the most innovative solutions to accelerate achievement of SDGs will be those which create multiple streams of value across economic, social, and environmental dimensions. In the African context, and I would dare say in the diaspora, focusing on the narrow economic alone will not work. There are environmental and contextual and social issues that we need to address. So you need, if you like, innovative models that are responsive and resilient, co-design, co-creation, and co-ownership. Make local ideas and capability sweat. Recognize people's capacity to change their own lives. You can go back all the way to Walter Rodney, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, Paul Ferre, The Pedagogy of the Oppressed, and all of those luminaries of development, developing out of colonialism and owning your own future. They also create multiple streams of value. I've already spoken about shared risk and shared reward. So move away from the transactional to the transformational, and that is absolutely key. If you do that, because if you don't move away from the transactional to the transformational, you will also reinforce within Africa some other unintended consequences. The patriarchal model of female domination. Women will then, men might be included, but women might actually remain excluded. And that, as we know, breeds multiple forms of other forms of violence. I see on the chat screen people talking about rape, gender-based violence. The President Banda spoke about women being denied resources but being abused by men. So the transformational is very, very important. Now, I don't know, I think I have a minute or two. What we have done at the University of Pretoria is that we've created 4 transdisciplinary innovation platforms. That is where, and we spent about 60 million US dollars creating these platforms. These are institutes, Engineering 4.0, which is about all things digital, from smart cities to smart transportation to smart agriculture and everything, using the and we're training students to answer your question in that particular kind of context. So they've grown up digital, but digital in Africa often comes in a particular form. Everyone looks like they have a digital form, but it's paid. It's a pay on the go. Data is very expensive, inaccessible to many people. So only low forms of transaction can happen. So we now at the University of Pretoria, we're one of the more fortunate universities that during COVID, we could smoothly, almost relatively go online because we spent another 10 million putting a digital onlining platform, and we started using digital online with contact as a hybrid mode in 2014 already. So people have to grow on digitally skilled in order to actually get into digital financing, to learn innovation. So we have these platforms, Future Africa Institute, Javid Art Center, Engineering for and Innovation Africa at UP, which is about digital precision agriculture. And agriculture is core to food security, to good nutrition, to food self-sufficiency for rural communities, which is important in a sense for them to become really empowered citizens, able to trade on their own terms in transformational ways. I think I ran out of my time, and I'll leave it at there and take some questions if there's time. Well, I think what we can do as academia, in the spirit of what I said earlier on, co-creating transformative knowledge, is that when we design our research into how digital financing and innovation works, we must design our questions together with my brother, Mr. Dare, because he has the practical knowledge of what actually works. But he's not saying necessarily he knows everything. There's some challenges which he just identified now. But we as universities might study this from a theoretic standpoint, get some insights, but that's not sufficient to scale these things up and also to achieve what the SDGs want to do. Genuine inclusion, address a lot of achievements across education, health, gender equality, and all of those things. So only when the academy meets society and gets closer to society and co-creates knowledge can also industry, like my brother's business, prosper, but also at the same time, as I said, with the co-creation, co-design, empower our own people. So that's what we mean by transdisciplinarity, the kind of knowledge that solves complex problems in real time, in real life, working together with the community and a variety of stakeholders. And it is in that space, as you suggested, that we need to do collaborative research projects and partnerships. I will be coming over to the US as soon as we can travel. And I've done it before. I've been to Howard and many places like that doing co-creation of collaborations, because our innovative collaboration platforms are not for us only. They are for collaboration with the diaspora, with the African continent, more broadly our continent, and with interested ethical other partners across the globe.